Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, former President Olusegun Obasanjo again writes open letter to President Buhari over the state of insecurity in the country, says the nation is close to a tipping point. 39-year-old man shot dead allegedly by operatives of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad in Lagos. Police claim killing was carried out by suspected robbers. People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar present 48 video exhibits before the election tribunal as evidence in their petition against President Buhari's victory. And former President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, appears before a panel investigating corruption allegations against him. Says exercise is a conspiracy aimed at removing him from politics.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's inflation eases for the first time in 2 months to 11.22% in June from 11.40% in the month of May.
And in sports news tonight, three-time Paralympic champion Lucy Ejike wins Nigeria's first gold medal at the ongoing Para-Powerlifting World Championships.
Nigerians today woke up to yet another open letter from former President Olusegun Obasanjo to President Muhammadu Buhari, but this time he's voicing his concerns about the security situation across the country. In the letter personally signed, Chief Obasanjo says that he is constrained to make it an open letter because the issues are weighty and worrisome to all concerned Nigerians, and so the content should be available to all who can help find solutions to the problem. The former president goes on to disown a number of articles written recently and ascribed to him by those whom he believes are seeking credence and attention. He expresses his concern and fears that the nation is what he describes on the precipice and dangerously reaching a tipping point where it may no longer be possible to hold danger at bay. According to Chief Obasanjo, quote, "When people are desperate and feel that they cannot have confidence in the ability of the government to provide security for their lives and property, they will take recourse to anything and everything that can guarantee the security individually and collectively," end of quote. He also disputes government's claims of victory over Boko Haram, pointing out that the potency and activities of the insurgents remain undiminished where they are active. On the farmer herders crisis, Chief Obasanjo blames the government for treating the issue with levity, causing it to fester and spread, developing into banditry, kidnapping, armed robbery, and killings all over the country. He explains that, quote, "The unfortunate situation is that criminality is being perceived as a Fulani menace unleashed by the Fulani elite in the different parts of the country for a number of reasons. But even more, unfortunately, many Nigerians and non-Nigerians who are friends of Nigeria attach responsibility to you as a Fulani elite and the current captain of the Nigerian ship. Perception may be potent as reality at times. Whatever may be the grievances of Fulanis, if any, they need to be put out in the open, and grievances, if legitimate, be addressed," end of quote. The former president lists what he describes as 4 avoidable calamities he's worried about. They include abandoning Nigerians in the hands of criminals suspected to be rightly or wrongly terrorists of the Boko Haram type, and spontaneous or planned reprisals against Fulanis that may mushroom into the Rwanda-type genocide. He also expresses fears of similar attacks against any other tribe or ethnic group in the country, and violent uprising being from one section of the country that may spread and lead to Nigeria's dismemberment. The former president suggests that the legitimate grievances of both the herdsmen and other ethnic groups should be brought out into the open and addressed through dialogue. Chief Obasanjo further warns, quote, "No one can stop hate speech, violent agitation, and smoldering violent agitation if it fans the embers of hatred, disaffection, and violence. It'll continue to snowball until it is out of control. A stitch in time saves 9, goes the wild old saying," end of quote. Meanwhile, the federal government is calling for caution and asking the political class to stop playing politics with the unfortunate death of the daughter of the Afenifere leader, Reuben Fashion-Roti. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, says it's incumbent on all leaders across the country to consider their language and its potential consequences. The statement describes Mrs. Funke Olakunri's murder as a tragedy, noting that insecurity is an issue that Nigeria must face together as one nation. It adds that tragedies like this should not spring up politics, and that those who stand in positions of influence need to recognize and understand this. peaceful protests on the streets of Akure, the Ondo state capital, against the killings of their kinsmen by gunmen. Their protest is coming just days after the daughter of frontline Yoruba leader Chief Reuben Fashoranti was killed while traveling along the Benin-Ore Expressway. Armed with placards, the youth spread along the Akure-Owo highway to air their grievances. They said they've had enough of killings of their kinsmen by suspected armed herdsmen, calling on the federal government to address the situation before it gets out of hand.
Their major primary objective as a government is to ensure the welfare of people under law. And here we are. We have the record of these people killing incessantly the good people of Western region, Ondo State, particularly Akure here every day. What is our offense? Are we no more a citizen of this country? The good prominent people that we had in Akure that have served this country relentlessly with all what has pleased God to bestow on them. If it is not Fulani, if it is Aya killer, if it is armed robber, the government should rise up to ensure that we are saved. Any manner, any name, whatever they call them, we have to be saved.
And staying with security matters, 13 suspects indicted for the killing of the district head of Daura have been paraded at the IGP Special Tactical Squad office in Abuja. The district head was rescued by the police in Kano on July the 2nd, 2019, after spending 60 days in the custody of the kidnappers who had demanded a 30 million naira ransom. The suspects were paraded alongside 40 others who had committed various crimes, including kidnapping, armed robbery, and cattle rustling. The Force Public Relations Officer, Frank Mba, said the detectives of the IGP Special Tactical Squad recovered 9 AK-47 rifles, 383 rounds of live ammunition, 3 military-caliber hand grenades, and chemicals used for making explosives from the suspects. Now, the rising cases of attacks across the country, and particularly the recent murder of Mrs. Funke Olakure, daughter of the Afenifere leader, Chief Reuben Fashoranti, has increased the call for the federal government to step up the fight against crime. This incident is just another sad addition to the list of killing and kidnappings across the country. Our correspondent, Orelu Ashonibare, reports.
Yeah, it has also happened to me. Oh, if they tell me for dream, I'm not going to believe.
This video that went viral recently, showing travelers who narrowly escaped being killed by gunmen on a highway in Nigeria, perhaps is evidence of how bad the security situation in the country has become.
No, only God knows waiting for the apple now.
These ones were lucky to escape the onslaught.
Nigeria is on fire. Oh.
A few days ago, a daughter of a prominent Yoruba leader was killed in Ondo State, southwest Nigeria. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, promises action by security agencies.
We're also engaging the army so that there will be a bit more military presence, especially along the roads. Yeah, and the Inspector General of Police, as you heard, has already, committed to ensuring that there is full coverage, police, even helicopters, and all of that. First in the search for these killers, and then also to ensure that there is adequate presence to deter this kind of terrible situation from recurring.
How much more presence do the police or military need before their effort is seen to be making any impact from the strategies earlier employed? Across the country, alarm bells are ringing, set off by wanton attacks by bandits, rustlers, and kidnappers. The vices have increased the questions about state police. But if there's a reluctance in going ahead with the idea, what then can be an effective substitute to contain the threats? That seems to be the billion-dollar question. Orelu Ashonibare, Channels Television News.
Now let's examine this issue a little bit further now. We're being joined live from our Abuja studio by a retired military officer, Major General Cecil Esekaigbe. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10. Now, let me just go
Thank you, Joma, for having me.
You're welcome. Let me go straight into asking you just what you make about the former president's letter and whether you agree with him that we appear to be approaching a precipice in his words.
Well, that we're in a precarious situation needs no explanation. This gamut of security challenges in the country today needs no overemphasis, ranging from insurgency, militancy, and banditry, of course, which includes kidnapping, cattle rustling, armed robbery, and all sorts of. So I think my take here is that he's calling for a conversation, that first of all, we must agree that there is crisis, and that, the government, the president should show leadership, and for everybody to join the president, to tackle this menace. So I think it's a call for everybody to put their hands together and see how, we can address, this stable that is causing crisis in this country.
Well, when you look at the security situation, it's not just one problem. It's multidimensional, as some people would say. Even starting with the South, for instance, we're seeing more attacks on targets that we didn't used to see before. What sort of approach do you think the government should take to tackle it?
First and foremost, I think as a matter of urgency, we must now start to look at the causes of this problem rather than the symptoms. The proliferation of small and light weapons in this country has gone to, unfrightening dimension. So the government must, as a matter of fact, now set up a national commission that will work with the national community to see how we can rout this menace of proliferation of small and light weapons. And two, we should not be, reactive in approach. We must be proactive. I mean, there are some of early warning signals. There are a lot of intelligence gathering that will show that this is what is going on. For instance, in the Southwest you're talking about, there have been a lot of feelers, like told in the boiling water, that these kind of things are getting out of hand. But what do? We don't have to wait for the child of a prominent Nigerian to be killed. All lives matter. People are being killed every day. So we must make a conscious effort to see how we can nip it at the bud.
Yes, but the question is what to do differently. I mean, we know there's been some sort of approach in the Northeast. There's a different situation in the Northwest, totally, with all the banditry. If you were in their shoes, seeing as you have experience in these kinds of things, what is the first thing that should be done differently so that we're not here in another 3 months talking about the same problems?
What we should do now is for the state government, to come out openly and assist the federal government, by giving them, contributing a lot of money for them to fight this scourge. You don't fight with empty hands. These policemen and the security agencies, they need weapons. They need to be well trained. They need, a lot of, support from the state, local government, and the federal level. So what we are doing now, what we need to do is to actually come to the table to identify who these people are. You must know your enemy. If you don't know your enemy, we're just running around. And that is why you see the crisis in conceptual definitions of, is it herdsmen, are they Fulani herdsmen, are they farmers, are they rustlers, and all that. So what we should do now is to come straight to the table and identify that there is a problem in our hands. Who are these enemies? And come together to put resources together, train the people that are going to attack these people. If we need help from international community, this is the time to ask for help. There is no shame in it. When it's becoming out of hand, call for any sort of support from anywhere and get it sorted out.
Okay, let me ask you this other question. Sometimes when you see the kind of cache or haul of weapons, they're not small arms, they're not light weapons as we hear. These are sophisticated looking weapons. Do you think maybe policing at the state level, for instance, could somehow stop these kind of weapons from moving from one state to the other and causing problems? What do you think?
There are small arms and light weapons. The description is not by the sizes, the latter effect. So just that is the paradox of looking at it as small arms and light weapons and the heavy casualty they inflict on people. State police, fine, but there are complexities surrounding the establishment of state police for a country like us where we read minutes to different things, when we politicize security issues. But I would suggest that we have what they call community policing at the first instance. Community policing involves some state governments are already doing it, bringing some vigilante groups together, because the people in the environment, they are familiar with their terrain. Then they can now work under the supervision of the state police in the local government and their levels. And the state should give enabling laws for these vigilante people to continue, to tackle this insecurity. State police might come after this community policing experience. And I believe with a very proactive approach, is going to see the light of the day in the approach.
All right, thank you so much, Major General Cecily Sekaigbe. Thanks for sharing that with us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you.
And in part 2, after the break, a group of lawyers staged protests at the South African High Commission in Lagos over the killing of Elizabeth Ndugwisi Chukwu and other Nigerians in South Africa. That's in a moment. Do stay with us.